Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we're going to introduce a new series that we're going to call Healthy Living Through Adversity. And today I've got a special guest. His name is Juan, and he's currently incarcerated, and his mission is to make amends, to give back in order to repair the harm he's caused, and to build a better society by providing practical tools to help people heal. If you've faced trauma, stress, grief, or systemic barriers, you need to hear this conversation. So, Juan, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. Very excited to have this opportunity to be in a situation such as prison and be able to call out there and do this podcast and hopefully contribute to enriching the lives of other people. So
I think
exciting.
This is going to go very well. So, Juan, can you tell us a little bit about how you spend your time while you're incarcerated?
Yeah, so for me, it's always been about soul searching, and getting in that place where, I had to seek resources to help me understand, like, how did I get here? And part of how my journey started, that landed me in prison was not being able to reach out for help, and acknowledge that, there was things going on in my life and, just things that I've been through that it traumatized me, and as the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. So I really was on that path of just trying to figure out, like, how did I end up here? How do I heal, if there was ever such a thing? At the time I didn't know, but like, how could I heal from that, and more importantly, like, how to pay that forward, and help other people on their journey to healing, especially people who have experienced the type of childhood traumas that I have. So I spend a lot of my time in, doing a lot of healthy things, like participating in groups, gaining insight and awareness, and exercising, going to church. I've developed a well-rounded program now. Writing, I love writing. I'm a lyricist, so I love writing and things like that to help me, express whatever I'm going through, so I don't suppress it and become explosive, or, in a place where I'm not processing whatever I'm going through in an unhealthy way.
Wow, that sounds very positive. I've been working with prisoners for almost 20 years, and that's the one thing the guys I've been working with have had in common is they find a way to keep their day positive. It's really easy to get caught up in negativity in a place like that, but you have the ability to make your own choices to some degree, and it sounds like you're making good ones. Today we're going to talk about the importance of asking for help. Why don't you share a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, I was in a place, prior to getting locked up, so I come to know now about adverse childhood experiences, and so knowing I tested out for people.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
For people who are not familiar with that, it's a survey that was developed in 1994. And so it actually 10 questions, and it helps you to rate your level of trauma. So for more information on that, you can go to the Compassion Prison Project, and then you can actually get more information about the adverse childhood experiences. And so anyway, I have 9 out of 10 of those ACEs. So I didn't know this at the time, but with those ACEs came symptoms of trauma, like the loss of self-worth, the loss of trust, loss of sense of safety, and so that turned over into me using like addiction and things like that to turn down the volume of my pain, right? I also experienced like developmental traumas, like learning disabilities, not being able to process or retain information, not being able to empathize with people. And so a lot of this it caused this inner suffering. In short, it caused this inner suffering and this pain that I didn't know how to deal with. And I didn't know who to go to. Where I'm from, you don't have mental health services, or it wasn't readily available, And so that's where, for me, it became like just being in a place where I felt unsafe, in my own head. I felt unsafe in my own head. I thought, my worldview was, everyone was out to hurt me. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to talk about the awful things that happened to me or what the benefit of that would even be, and for the most part, I was always taught to just suppress the stuff that I've been through. And so that was my coping mechanism, just kind of suppress it, not deal with it, don't face it, and just suffer with it. And so that's why now I'm becoming more of an advocate for people and letting them know that they have to get in a place where they are able to talk about those things and knowing how to reach out for help and the importance of reaching out for help.
So do you think that most people, or at least a good amount of people that have suffered childhood trauma, deal with it kind of the same way you did? Or do you think that, like, if people are in a more privileged area where they have services available, that they reach out and take them?
Yeah, so there's a difference between childhood trauma and adverse childhood experiences.
Okay.
So adverse childhood experiences, right? It's just it's basically adverse situations, things that adversely affects the child, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to turn into childhood trauma.
Got it.
Right? So you have adverse childhood experiences, and then you have what is a traumatizing experience for a child, something that overwhelms the nervous system or their mental. So just to make a distinction there, because the importance is, to answer your question, is what takes the adverse childhood experiences into something that is traumatic for a child. And generally, it is not having someone there, like a caregiver, a parent, a mentor, someone to actually help the child talk about and process in a healthy way whatever experience that they went through. And so for most people who don't have someone who as children, when we're left with this awful, whatever happened, when, like myself, I didn't have nobody to go to that I could say, hey, this happened to me, right? I just bottled it up, and, well, that became a traumatizing experience. So it crossed the threshold of being an adverse childhood experience because I didn't have someone there to actually help me process it in a healthy way. So the question becomes is, who does the child have in their life to actually recognize that the child just went through something that was pretty traumatic or could be traumatic and have an adverse effect on them in the future and become traumatizing? So who does that child have that recognize that and say, hey, I need to get this child some help? So for the most part, I believe people are like myself, and we're especially, this is all new information. So a lot of us were ignorant to the importance of knowing about childhood trauma and the need to get help so we can process it in a healthy way. So I think there are a lot of people who dealt with it exactly like I did and didn't have anybody to turn to, and therefore they were suffering then, and I believe they're still suffering now as a result of that trauma. Like, they're still living with those traumas even today.
So you think, like, if a kid is going through, like you say, an adverse experience, and he's got parents or he's got guardians, but he doesn't think they want to hear about it, or he's afraid to tell them because, he's going to get blamed for something or whatnot. A lot of times the kid might not say something, when on the other side of it, maybe the parent or the guardian just thinks everything's okay because the kid never said anything. maybe the parent guardian isn't that good at expressing that he's there for the kid, but he is, you know. I wonder how much of a just disconnect causes a lot of these problems.
Yeah, that gets into attachment theory, but just to answer your question, as I sit in group, I hear a lot of different stories. For me, I was pretty much threatened not to say anything to my parents. I heard other men who wanted to, who actually went and told their parents, and they weren't believed, and was actually accused of lying about a situation, which added like another trauma on top of it. And then you had other men who told their parents, and then their parents kind of like just helped, like, hey, just don't say anything because, just for whatever reason, they didn't want whoever the abuser was to get into trouble. And yeah, those have even further implications when it comes to, the impact of that trauma, because now the child has no one to even feel like they're going to be protected. So part of the dynamics of the child and caregiver relationship is that the child is supposed to feel like their parent or caregiver is going to protect them. So
Right.
when the child goes to the caregiver and say like, hey, this awful thing happened to me and this person did it, and the caregiver in essence, just don't do anything about it, the child develops that worldview that I'm not important, no one is going to protect me, I don't matter, and that adds on another component to the trauma in and of itself.
Wow, that's it's
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
it's really disheartening to think that the kids are facing so much obstacle that way. You know, it seems like you got to have that perfect setup where the kid knows they can talk to the guardian or the parent, and the parent is receptive and, stands behind the kid. It seems like that's it's not the best odds.
Yeah, when you think about the parent caregiver, and I'll just kind of mention it briefly here. So in attachment theory, in order to, you have secure attachment, insecure attachment, anxious, ambivalent attachment, and then you have disorganized attachment. The healthy form is the secure attachment, right? And there's four S's when it comes to secure attachment. That's the feeling seen, soothed, safety, and security. And so what we're talking about here is the safety aspect, right? Is the child who no longer feels like their caregiver is going to protect them and keep them safe. The caregiver is the first relationship that the child will ever have with anyone in this world, right?
Right.
And so the relationship that the child has with the caregiver is going to set the foundation for every relationship after that the child is going to have with anyone else. So yeah, when you have this caregiver who is basically in essence neglectful, not seeing the child, not soothing the child or protecting the child, that creates that worldview. And a lot of us, we don't feel safe, or we don't trust people, and we don't really know how that is connected to the fact that, well, I never felt safe, seen, or protected by my own parents. I never felt connected to them, or my
Wow.
caregiver. I never felt that connection. I never developed that healthy bond, or learned how to even regulate. They never taught me how to even regulate myself, or, soothe me. So I know, like, hey, I can go through
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I can go through challenging things and it still be okay,
Wow, that's crazy. Well, it looks like we got about a minute left. And I think what we're going to do is just do short episodes like this. So I'll give you the remainder of your time to conclude this thought, and then we'll start up the next episode, and we'll continue the conversation, but we'll do it as another episode.
Okay. Yeah. So at this point, it's just, traumatization is not what happened to you. It's what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. So whatever care you did not get as a child, or you can be that healthy caregiver for yourself now. So that would be my closing.
I think that's a great way to look at it. You're opening up a whole lot of information here that I'll bet you many of our listeners are scratching their head going, wow, that was me. And, I was in a situation where, my dad was there for me. I knew he cared for me and all that, but I didn't want to tell him about everything because I don't, I don't think he, I don't think he wanted to hear about it. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of that kind of adversity in my life, but had I don't know how it would have gone. So I can imagine so many kids and so many adults today are looking back going, "Oh wow, that makes some sense." I think you're going to be helping a lot of people through this platform here. All right, I think we lost him. This is how this goes. When you talk to somebody that's incarcerated, you get about 15 minutes a shot. So this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I
Hello.
want to thank all of our listeners for make this show possible, and we will see you next time. Oh, you're still there? I
All
thought
right.
you had gotten cut off.
Yeah, I just came. No, I just came back right now.
Oh, you just came back. Okay, perfect. So we're going to start the next episode, and we'll just keep going. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.